right, we're going to get started here, everyone. Welcome to Transportation Committee hearing of Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. The time is 3:06 p.m. That seems to be always the time that we start, 3:06 p.m. And we are in room 1100 of the Minnesota Senate building. A quorum is present. And today, members, we have 6 bills on the agenda. And 2 of them we're going to take as one bill, but we'll get to that when we get to that. The first bill up is my bill. So I'm going to go to the table and ask Vice Chair Johnson Stewart to take the gavel.
Thank you, Senator Dibble. Are you ready?
I am. Thank you, Madam
All right.
Chair.
I think I'm supposed to say Senator Dibble to your bill.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity and honor to present Senate File Number 2148. I'd also like to thank my co-authors, Senators Klein, yourself, Madam Chair, and I believe Senator Jasinski has since also signed on to the bill, which I appreciate very much. I do have some lovely talking points that my advocates have prepared, but I'm going to let them they speak much more articulately to the need for this bill, and I'll just set up what the bill seeks to accomplish and then have my testifiers talk about why this is so important and something we need to get done this year. Just very, very quickly, in short summary, the bill proposes to make improvements and changes to the Washington Avenue Bridge at the University of Minnesota over the Mississippi River, which connects the East Bank and the West Bank. And if folks are familiar with that bridge, of course, on the driving deck, it accommodates cars and light rail, but up top, it's pedestrian and bicycle passageway. And it has been for a long, long time. Anyone who has spent any time at the campus going back and forth has probably walked across that bridge a million times. I know I have. And unfortunately, the railings are quite low, and a number of people, young people in particular, have died by suicide at that bridge, including the tragic circumstance of the daughter of a mom that we have here. And unfortunately, and she's not the only one, and in fact has become, quite a bit of a phenomenon and a problem in this spot. We know from research and evidence that if we can even pause, slow down, allow opportunities for intervention, bystanders, whomever, folks who are in that moment, in the moment of suicidal ideation, looking to take that act, that ability to intervene, slow down, create barriers, make folks can get through that moment of crisis, and then get the help they need, and then move on, and in many, many cases move on to healthy and happy lives. And so the goal is to erect. Right now there are temporary barriers which were difficult to get up. That's a whole different story. They're ugly, and there needs to be a more permanent solution to this bridge in this place, and that's what this bill proposes to do. It proposes to make use of the Metro-wide sales tax that was enacted in the 2023 Transportation Finance Bill, 83% of which goes to transit/bike ped. 5% of that 83% is set aside for bike ped purposes. Currently goes in the amount of around $20 to $25 million, I believe, per year, goes to the Met Council, is put in the hands of the Transportation Advisory Board for competitive grant-making purposes through the regional solicitation. This would preempt that process a little bit and take a little bit of that money, on a one-time basis, kind of off the top, if you will, to make these improvements to the Washington Avenue Bridge. Some would ask, and I'll anticipate maybe a couple of questions, why not general fund cash? Why not bonding? Why not, it's the county-owned bridge, why not make the county do the improvements? Those are all great ideas too. I'm not against any of those ideas. This just happens to be my idea, and it's something I know that we can do. there are other bills with some of those other ideas moving on separate tracks, and we'll figure it out in the end. This is what I think we can do, and also I want to put this idea into motion as well. With that, who would like to go first? All right, so I'd like to introduce MJ Wise, who is the mother of Kayla Gable.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Ms. Weiss, sorry. Again, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of this committee for hearing this bill today. Everyone knows somebody who struggles with a form of mental distress. All of you would likely agree that we need to protect and give hope to that person when they need it the most. Life has taught us that we need to protect our homes, our schools, workplaces, streets, just to name a few places. We need to keep them safe. But we never expect a simple phone call that changes a life forever. And that's what happened to me on November 9th, 2023. I'm MJ, the mother of Kayla Gable, and on that day, Kayla chose death by suicide on the Washington Avenue Bridge. She was 29 years old. She left behind a 2-year-old son and a 3-year-old daughter, and many, many others who will never forget who she was and who she would have become had she only been forced to pause and realize that there is hope and help out there, even in times of darkness. On November 11th, 2023, I walked on that bridge for the first time. I saw a very frightening problem, a problem that has existed a very long time. And I knew I needed to speak up for Kayla and for the others who are no longer with us. Task force groups formed in 2010 and 2017 were formed to look and address these problems. Someone or something would stop their process. In January 2024, I was not sure where to turn to or who to call for help to fix this problem, so I called SAVE, Suicide Awareness Voices of Education. John and the whole SAVE team have helped me highlight this tragic problem, and we nearly succeeded in getting suicide barriers placed on that bridge a year ago. We have spoken to many of you in hearings and in your offices. We noted that the Washington Avenue Bridge was built over 50 years ago, and the pedestrian railings, as they currently stand, offer no protection to those who walk on it. I have shared now how I have lost Kayla, but I have also learned 2 to 5 people die by suicide every year because there are no barriers on that bridge to stop who may be struggling, anyone struggling with a form of mental distress. The tragedy is real, and the numbers are frightening. So along with SAVE, we formed Kayla's Hope. Together with my family, my friends, and others who have felt the same tragedy, and SAVE, we have made it our mission to stop this bridge from being a suicidal hotspot. Last session, funding for those suicide barriers were included in the bonding bill. Unfortunately, it did not pass, and we know of others who have lost their lives there since then. Since May 2024, we have been working with the University of Minnesota to get some sort of temporary barriers in place. Fortunately, shortly after she came to the U, President Cunningham took the initiative, and she had a chain link fence put in place on the bridge. This is only a temporary solution, but it has already saved several lives. I appreciate the work that Senator Disick did and the work that Senator Dibble continues to do on this bill. I, my family, and the folks at SAVE would deeply appreciate your leadership and your help in moving this bill forward and helping us save others. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weiss. I'm so sorry for your loss. Thank you for your work on this. Senator Dibble, do I call on him, or do you want to introduce?
Mr. Appetz would like to provide some testimony as well.
Mr. Appetz,
Madam Chair, thank you very much.
introduce yourself, please.
Yep, my name is John Appetz. I'm a member of the board of SAVE, which is, MJ said, is Suicide Awareness Voices of Education. And we thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of Senate File 2148, which is about the need for suicide prevention barriers on the bridge at the University of Minnesota. If you take a look at that picture, I just saw it pop up here. I think it might be very helpful to you. On the left is the Washington Avenue Bridge, as it is today. The railing that you're looking at is just about waist high, and it runs the entire length, which is about 1,000 feet, I believe, from one side, from the east bank to the west bank of the University of Minnesota campus. The picture on the right is a superimposed picture, a superimposed barrier that we I created and said, this is what it could look like if you put some barriers on that bridge. And the feature of those barriers is they're very hard to climb, they're very hard to get over, and they are something that stop suicidal ideation. Very quickly about SAVE. For 36 years, SAVE has been a not-for-profit national organization located here in Minnesota that's committed to preventing suicide. That's our goal. We have 4 missions. One is to help people who are the lost survivors of suicide, to do education and training, to do advocacy, and to deal with lethal means. We call it lethal means safety, stopping lethal means wherever we can. And this bridge speaks to all 4 of those particular goals that we have, as well as do a lot of tall public structures, which I'll get to if I can in just a minute, Madam Chair. On Monday, we had some testimony over in the other body, and unfortunately today, some of the most powerful testifiers along with MJ were there. 2 students from the University of Minnesota spoke to their experience with some of their classmates on this bridge. The young lady who was there spoke to an issue of, or the situation where somebody she knew had gone to the bridge and fortunately had been stopped from stepping off. It was very touching testimony, and unfortunately, they can't be here, so I just wanted to mention that. We're really appreciative of the fact that President Cunningham has put up some temporary fencing on that bridge. It came about just before Thanksgiving of this past year, and since she put up that bridge, this was a bit of a struggle, but since she put up that bridge, 6 other suicide attempts have been thwarted. This continues. It goes on. So since last year, we've done a whole bunch of research. As MJ said, this provision was in the bonding bill under the University of Minnesota HEPR. It was included. I appreciate Senator Dibble coming to you this way this year because the bonding bill may be a little bit tighter, and we're hoping that this gets done in one fashion or another. This is a very unique and special approach to doing this. But we did a whole bunch of work since then to look at bridges all over this country and try to figure out if these kind of barriers have practical application. And we've come to a single conclusion that when they're erected, they save lives. They stop people from committing suicide. Rates drop dramatically because the impulsivity of suicide can be stopped for those few moments that it takes to have a person rethink the situation. Barriers protect pedestrians, they protect cyclists, they interrupt the suicide impulse, and they save lives. Other communities have done this. In Tennessee, the Natchez Chase Bridge, Parkway Bridge, have put up suicide barriers. In Florida, the Sunshine Skyway Bridge had their suicide numbers drop dramatically after a barrier was erected. The Golden Gate Bridge, which you're all familiar with, is finalizing plans for suicide barriers. And after several years of advocacy, the Washington Avenue Bridge in New York now has barriers in place. The Smith Street Bridge has barriers in place. A lot of you cross that bridge regularly. That used to be a suicide hotspot. The High Bridge. I'm correct. It is the Smith Street High Bridge. We'll go with High Bridge.
It's actually
exactly.
the Smith Avenue High Bridge.
Smith Avenue, pardon me, Madam Chair. High Bridge. You've all gone across it, and if you look on either side, you see the protection that has gone into place. It's critical. What has happened there is critical because since those barriers went up, there have been no suicides from that bridge. The neighborhood demanded those, and they were put in place. So as we did this, we came to a conclusion that there are a lot of public structures that are high, that need some attention and need some review. And so while we encourage you to act on this bridge, we're also going to ask lawmakers to consider legislation that would take a look at any new construction or any remodeled construction, tall structures, and consider integrating enhanced safety features into them. It just makes kind of common sense to do this. And from what we've learned, it's not very expensive to do. So what the government builds, the government ought to build safely, we think. But we're here today on this particular bill with this author, and many of you are authors as well. We thank you for your help with that. We encourage you to pass this bill. If there's any questions, we'll certainly be happy to answer them, but thank you ever so much for considering this.
Thank you, Mr. Apitz. Are there any other testifiers in the room that wanted to come forward on this bill? Then I think we open it up for questions. Oh, Mr.
Can I
Apitz,
tell
you
one other
want to
story?
add something?
I'm sorry, I forgot this. There's just one other story. So we were here last year, and this bridge has been here for a long time. This bridge has been here for 60 years. We came up with our shirts last year. We paraded into offices. We testified. We got provision in the bonding bill. And we had a gentleman, had a few gray hairs, come and join us when we were upstairs in the Capitol. His name was Jerry. And Jerry wandered in and said, can I help? Can I work with you guys today? And we said, well, certainly. Why would you want to do that? And he said, I lost my brother to the Washington Avenue Bridge 42 years ago. There are about 3, 4, or 5 people who lose their lives to that bridge every year. And until that fence went up, it continued. There were people who lost their lives after the bonding bill failed. Thank you, President Cunningham, for her initiative in putting the bridge up. You can help her this right now. Thank you.
Thank you. It looks like there's no other testifiers, so committee members, do you have any questions? Senator Jasinski?
Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Dibble, and thank you for bringing this bill forward. I definitely agree that we need to do this. I do have some questions on the funding, as Senator Dibble brought up, looking at why isn't Hennepin County paying for this versus tapping into the Met Council. So just, have a little bit of concern over that we're using money as a Hennepin County bridge, and why are we putting that off? And, I guess my frustration this year is we're putting more and more pressure on our local counties in shifted costs from the state budget down to the counties. And from what I'm hearing, I think it's 7 to 8% increase across the board in what's going down to the local taxes. So I'm assuming that's maybe why we're trying this alternative. But again, the frustration is a lot of state money or state costs are being pushed to our counties, and the counties push it to our constituents on their taxes, and where they're seeing a lot of increases. So I guess, of that, I guess there's the Met Council, and I don't know if anybody on the Met Council wants to discuss, their concern over the funding versus Hennepin County funding themselves. So I support the bill 100%, just a little leery over where it's coming from and why is it not coming from Hennepin County. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Jasinski. Are there other questions? I guess I have something to add. First off, members, in your packet, there's some additional materials that relate to SAVE's presentation, as well as Ms. Weiss's daughter. It's just a lovely story. Again, so sorry for your loss. There's also a letter from Hennepin County Commissioner Irene Fernando, if anybody wanted to take a minute to look at that. I have just a comment or a question. Senator Dibble, I know that you're quite in tune with the biking community. I actually walk over this bridge all the time, and I too have noticed that the railing is very short. Have you heard from any bikers or anybody who uses scooters or any other transportation like that, that they have a sense of danger when they're crossing this bridge? Mr. Senator Dibble.
That's a great question, Madam Chair. I have not heard specifically about the Washington Avenue Bridge railing being too short to make them comfortable. However, I have heard, and we might have had some discussion even in this committee, I'm not sure, about the Mendota Bridge, which is of great concern to the bicycling community because, that Mendota Bridge was just renovated and the railing is far too short to be used safely by bicyclists because the top of the railing comes to exactly where an average adult seat would be. And so, if there's anything that happens, over they go. And likewise, SAVE has mentioned that that's a similar concern. That's a very, very tall bridge, it's about 100 feet in the air, maybe 80 feet, 100 feet in the air above the river valley there. And so we're having a similar conversation about suicide safety and prevention along the Mendota Bridge. Unfortunately, that's going to be a pretty expensive fix because they just finished it. So then now they're going to have to go back and make some additional capital changes. And we've had a productive conversation with MnDOT about that. They understand that that was a big mistake that they made in pursuing that renovation. So thank you for the opportunity to talk about that. So, and then of course, Mr. Appetz had talked about maybe working with MnDOT to be more proactive, thinking more actively when there's renovation, rehabilitation opportunities or new construction to build in safety from the get-go.
Thank you, Senator. I understand Michael Wojcik is in the room and wanted to, is he online? Oh, he's on Zoom from Bike MN, ready to testify on the next bill, and Mr. Wojcik wanted to respond to that question as well. So if you could unmute yourself and offer up your insight. Mr. Wojcik?
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, Senators. Thanks for the opportunity to comment. My ears were bleeding when I heard bicycle pedestrian. I am the Executive Director of the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota. We are the statewide nonprofit focused on safe biking, walking, rolling. This bill is new to us, so we don't have an official position on it, but I am very familiar with the Washington Avenue Bridge. I am a University of Minnesota graduate with 2 master's degrees from there. I can tell you that our organization and our membership believe overwhelmingly in building safe infrastructure. This is the kind of infrastructure that in fact would make that bridge much safer. So as somebody who has used that bridge as both a bicyclist and a pedestrian, we would see this as being a safer design, and we commend the folks bringing this bill forward and see it as a positive for the safety of people that we love and care about.
Thank you for your testimony. I have a few words, and then I'll send it back to Senator Dibble for final words. I taught at the U for about 30 years, so I have also walked over this bridge many times. And while I appreciate your words about the Mendota Bridge, I think the Washington Avenue Bridge is special in that it sits right in the middle of 2 campuses that have 50,000 undergraduate students. If you read Kayla's story, she was a student, she was familiar with the bridge. It is a very accessible bridge to a large number of young people who we know from trusted research that they are oftentimes struggling with mental health issues. So I also want to bring up that President Cunningham and I have spoken about the temporary chain link that's there right now. It's very ugly, but I want you to know that the university is already paying to rent that chain link fence. So while I appreciate your comments, Senator Jasinski, I also want to note that if we were to pass this and the university would know that there was in fact some funding coming their way, they could move more quickly with the assurance that this project could be implemented, and I think we'd be getting rid of that chain link fence sooner than later. But it does take a while to design these things, but I think your efforts are just to be admired, and I appreciate that. I've said in the bonding committee that 10 years ago, while inspecting this bridge for the construction of light rail, we had somebody attempt suicide. They actually landed on one of the piers and were saved. But I was shocked as a faculty member to find out 10 years ago that several students were taking their own life from this bridge even then, and I think of it every time I drive over it. So thank you for your advocacy and your bill. And Senator Dibble, do you have any closing words?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you very much to the committee for your attention and the conversation. Thank you, of course, to the advocates who have just been tremendous and so patient and persevering through the heartbreak of the bill last year that failed in the final seconds of our session where the money was already there. So yet another year goes by, and many more attempts than even in this past year. So just reminds us of the reality of the things that we work on, really have consequence and impact out in the real world. It's not just these conversations. I just wanted then finally to respond, to the issues that I raised and Senator Jasinski also raised around, who should pay and et cetera. First of all, we don't know if $15 million is the final number. There's some indication that this project might not cost that much. And so the $50 million is kind of a placeholder, number one. Number two, there is a state role in paying for these improvements because, the use of the bridge, even though it's owned by Hennepin County, is unique because it really is kind of dedicated largely, especially the upper deck, to the purposes of the campus. And so it's got a unique kind of a set of agreements that are in place for the university to use the bridge in unique ways. There aren't a lot of bridges that are decked that you walk across that also have the warmed walkway and all the bike lanes and stuff that are painted on it. So there is kind of a shared county-state responsibility. The state, of course, in the manifestation of the University of Minnesota. So at the end of the day, we might be having a conversation with the county about sharing the responsibility. So this is just the start of the conversation. We're going to lay the bill on the table and take it up as we start to put together the larger budget.
All right, well, thank you, Senator. With that, Senate File 2148 is laid on the table. And I'm going to do this just because I can. And I hand the chair back to Senator Dibble.
We'll trade places.
All right.
Senator Johnson Stewart to Senate File 1836.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate File 1836 is a bill that concerns jaywalking. As many of us are familiar, back in the 60s, jaywalking was always like from corner to corner, or Senator Carlson mentioned that earlier today to me. This bill actually takes away the illegality or the citation authority for 3 different types of jaywalking. And they are listed here. The first is that a pedestrian can only be issued a citation for crossing a road on yellow or red during a flashing or steady display of a don't walk signal or in the middle of a block between intersections if the pedestrian is stopped for an unrelated violation or the pedestrian basically crosses in front of a car, creating a hazard of collision between the vehicle and the pedestrian. So again, those things right now are reasons for citation, and this bill would take those reasons away. So again, crossing on a flashing yellow on a red light, or don't walk sign, or crossing between block would only be something that could cause citation if the pedestrian caused a hazard or crossed in front of a car. Senator Dibble.
So put another way, pedestrians can kind of use their common sense and cross the street if there are no cars coming or cars are far enough away that they can get across a street safely. Mm-hmm. Pedestrians still are not free to just simply step out in front of a car that's approaching in such a way as they would likely cause them to hit their brakes or hit them or something like that.
Right. And Senator Dibble, if I could interrupt, I should have also thanked my co-authors, Senator Abler, Senator Carlson, and Senator Mitchell. So this is a bipartisan bill. And again, just really makes clear that something that seems to happen quite commonly, that does not pose a hazard, is no longer something that would warrant a citation.
Great,
Mr.
thank
Chair.
you. And members, I'll mention in your packet is a fiscal note that shows no fiscal impact. Questions at this point for?
Senator Dibble, I think that our one testifier is online.
Right, I was just going to see if there are questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
At this point to the bill presentation, and then we're going to go to testifiers. So I don't see any questions. So returning to testimony is Michael Wojcik from Bike MN. Greetings.
Thank you, Chair Dibble, for the opportunity to testify. Again, Michael Wojcik, Executive Director of the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota. This has been a bill that we are working hard to ensure that there is broad consensus on. We're proud to have bipartisan support in both chambers. We don't see this as something that necessarily this is an example of the common sense legislation that we talk about. It's a practice that a lot of people are already doing. I would ask the folks in the room to raise their hand if they've jaywalked before, but I respect your constitutional right not to self-incriminate. So I will simply say that we know it happens a lot. And there are times where, crossing in certain circumstances are unsafe if a vehicle is coming, and this bill does not change that in any way. This is about when the opportune time to cross and it's safe to do so and there are no vehicles coming, it puts into practice what people are already doing. This is a common bill that's been passed all over the country, different states, cities throughout the country. And the idea here is fundamentally that we respect people's safety, but we also want the laws to be reflective of the way that people are actually behaving. We think that this is a good correction, and we would urge this to move forward. And we also understand that there is a law enforcement aspect of this, so we continue to meet with different law enforcement folks. We've met with the police chiefs. We have a meeting coming up with the Department of Public Safety. We want to make sure that we get their input there. We are happy to continue to meet with anybody about what this potential bill would do. I thank the authors from both parties for being a part of this, and mostly I wanted to be here to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Wojcik. Are there questions for the testifier? All right. I have no questions. Would anyone else like to testify on Senate File 1836? Seeing none. Senator Johnson Stewart, I don't know if you know, and I'm sorry to inform you if you were previously unaware, that this bill needs to go to judiciary.
Oh.
Yeah. So, according to according to experts, people tell me that this needs to go to judiciary.
That's okay. That'll be kind of a new thing for me.
Everyone says this needs to go to judiciary. So, Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Johnson Stewart. Again, I think overall it makes sense to me, common sense. I agree with it. I think we've all done it. But one question, though, so, let's say, for example, I'll play the devil's advocate here. So say there was someone crossing a street and there was a car coming, and for some reason there was an accident, and it went to court, and then went like this. So who determines the hazard? So if there's no law enforcement right there at the time of the accident, and the person says, well, it was legal to do this if nobody was coming, and then someone had to slam on their brakes that they didn't see and cause an accident. I'm concerned when it goes to court, who proves that hazard, whether it's a hazard or not. I mean, a hazard to one person could be different than a hazard to another person. So tell me how you see that happening, if that actually would happen. Again, someone crossing, let's say it's between two lights across the street, you don't see any traffic coming, and all of a sudden they miss seeing it, and all of a sudden they slammed on their brakes and hit something, and now you would think they get a ticket issued because they did that, caused the accident. Now it's who determines the hazard? How do you take that into how that would play out? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I would think that the hazard is demonstrated by the fact that an accident was, in fact, happened. So keep in mind also, Senator Jasinski, that many times when there's an accident like that, there wouldn't be a citation if the police weren't involved. So coincidentally, just 2 weeks ago, a pedestrian jumped out in front of the car ahead of me. That driver slammed on his brakes, but I was not able to stop in time. The pedestrian continued on her merry way, and the two drivers, me and him, had to deal with the insurance. But we didn't call the police or anything like that. The woman who jumped out in front of the guy I hit didn't even know that she had caused an accident. So what this does, I suppose, is provide for a citation if there's police there, or if there is somebody who's doing something dangerous, stumbling in front of traffic or crossing a light on purpose to cause a disturbance. But this, in fact, I think would be only provable if, in fact, a hazard was, you know, it's like we say in highway design, if a near miss is an accident or a near miss, you know, it's an accident or a crash if, in fact, a crash occurs. So I don't really have a concrete answer, but it's certainly a good point.
We have an attorney who wants to respond. Senator McEwen.
Ooh.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I was going to say, I think as the resident attorney who is part of this committee, I have dealt with situations like this in the courts before, and perhaps they will discuss this in judiciary, but just for the committee's understanding, this would be handled in the way any other alleged violation of law would be handled. So initially, if the police did become involved, if there's an accident with vehicles and police become involved, they would take a look at the evidence, statements that people give, how the car, you know, what the accident actually looked like, any evidence on the scene from skid marks, all sorts of stuff. So they would look at, and if they determine, then they would issue a citation if they determine there's probable cause that there was a violation of the law. And then it would be a question of fact for either a judge or a jury in court. So.
Thank you, Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I support the bill. I just wanted to bring up the question again. I think it makes sense. It's a common sense thing. I see it happen all the time. And if there's nobody there, why stand there and wait or go down to the next intersection? So I get out support. I just wanted to ask that question. Thanks.
All right. Anything further, committee? All right. So Senator Johnson Stewart moves Senate File 1836 be recommended to pass. There were no and referred to the Committee on Judiciary and Public Safety. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. Thank you, Senator Johnson Stewart. Let's move to your next bill. Senate
I just wanted to say
1903.
thank you to Senator McEwen for that. And now I have to.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't give you the final word. So you can take the final word now if you have anything to any concluding statements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to thank Senator McEwen, who offered up some insight there. And I'll be hiring her to help me track down that lady that caused the accident. Just kidding. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's it.
Yeah, it's a little late to do an accident reconstruction. It's been the snow and everything.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so moving on, we have Senate File 1903, Work Zone Safety and Work Zone Driving Rules Requirement as Driver Education and Driver Examination Subjects. Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Jasinski and Senator Dibble, my co-authors. I did wear one of my favorite shirts. I covered up my logo. I want you guys to know that. But some of you may not know this about me, but I have spent about 40 years on the side of a highway working on the construction inspection team. And so this bill is near and dear to me in that I have experienced firsthand many near misses, many crashes, many very scary incidents wherein drivers in a work zone are traveling in an unsafe way. So I have several initiatives around work zone safety. This is just the first of several that I hope to bring before this committee. But what this bill does is incorporates work zone safety and work zone driving rules into our driver's ed curriculum and into our driver's ed manuals. And Senate File 1903 is something that I think is very smart. We have data I don't know if you guys have it in front of you, but we know that several people are injured annually during crashes with adjacent traffic. I can tell you guys, it is terrifying. We know last year, or I don't remember when it was, maybe 2 years ago, I know Senator Dibble and Senator Jasinski, I think you were on this tour for Highway 94 through Maple Grove. We had some speed cameras set up, and we knew that people were driving through that work zone at times in excess of 100 miles an hour. I'll tell you what, though, 25 miles an hour is fast enough to cause serious damage. So I think it's really important that students and participants in driving education understand what the signage is, understand the importance, understands the impact. And so I think this is a good bill. And I have one testifier.
All right. Thank you very much, Senator Johnson Stewart. I'll pause for a moment, see if there's any clarification questions on the proposal before us, before we go to testimony. Okay, so moving on to testifiers. We have Abby Bryduck here.
Hi, Abby.
Losing track of, oh, there it is.
She didn't get the memo about the shirt.
Oh,
But I have one
and
in my
while
car.
Ms. Bryduck is coming forward, I will mention that in accordance with the rules of the Senate, the following member will be participating remotely in today's hearing, Senator Pa from Brooklyn Park. Welcome, Ms. Bryduck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Senate Transportation Committee. My name is Abby Bryduck, and I'm the Executive Director of the Minnesota Asphalt Pavements Association. This is a trade association representing asphalt producers and paving contractors since 1942. We're here today to express strong support for the inclusion of work zone safety content in drivers' education requirements. Our commitment stems from a deep concern over both the safety for drivers and our workers on Minnesota roads. It was just past 3:30 a.m. early on a June morning in 2022 when a 2008 Chevy Equinox sped westbound along Highway 36 in Lake Elmo. The road, normally open to traffic, had been shut down for construction, but the three teenage boys inside the vehicle either didn't notice or didn't understand the risks of entering an operational work zone. Moments later, their vehicle struck a dirt pile at high speed and rolled. The force of the crash ejected the 17-year-old driver from Roseville, who was not wearing a seatbelt. He died at the scene. His two passengers, another 17-year-old and a 16-year-old, survived, suffering non-life-threatening injuries. Both of them had been wearing their seatbelts. What should have been a protected construction site had instead become the location of another work zone tragedy. This is not an isolated incident. Minnesota actually ranks 8th in the nation for fatal work zone crashes. A sobering statistic that underscores the urgent need for better driver education, especially for teens whose inexperience, speed, and distraction can make work zones even more dangerous. Proper education about work zones, why they exist, how to navigate them safely, and the consequences of ignoring closures could mean the difference between life and death. By incorporating work zone safety into Minnesota's driver education curriculum, we can better prepare young drivers, enhance safety for all road users, and reduce the frequency of tragic incidences in work zones. MAP is working with Senator Johnson Stewart on another bill, which will also have a work zone safety requirement, has a little different approach that would require a free online training program for the provisional driver's licenses program. It would also fund, this other bill would also fund a work zone safety billboard contest for high school graphic design students and have some requirements for how we bid flaggers in construction contracts. But we support this bill as well. We just want it to happen, whatever makes the most sense. The bill that will be coming, it's in the revisor's office in the House right now, might address some concerns that could come up over cost and process, and it might avoid a fiscal note. So we'll make sure to convene and work together to see what is the easiest path forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I just wanted to mention, Mr. Chair,
Ms. Bryduck.
that the concept that we have to do this online training program, several other states have done it already, Wisconsin and Oklahoma, and the website, if you care to check it out yourselves, is workzonesafe.com. And that's where kids would go to take their
Great, thank you.
curriculum.
Any questions for Ms. Bryduck? All right, seeing none, so I see we have John Palmer, who is Professor Emeritus with St. Cloud State University, online. Welcome, Professor Palmer. If you could please introduce yourself for the record and then proceed with your testimony.
I am John Palmer. I'm retired from St. Cloud State as director of the Highway Safety Center. Deja vu. I came to Minnesota in 1976. My entire career, from teaching high school driver ed to teaching high school driver educators how to teach. In 1989, District 3 of MnDOT came to us at the Safety Center saying there was a need to do a better job of dealing with work zone safety. And we worked and partnered with them and produced an instructional packet called Orange IQ. Now, when I saw this bill was introduced, I did some research. I went online to say, if I were teaching today, what resources do I have to conduct an instructional module, which is absolutely essential to include in a driver ed curriculum? What was out there? Interestingly enough, the only comprehensive curriculum available to me has a date of 1990. There hasn't been anything developed either nationally or in the state of Minnesota. There have been efforts to do various things. There was an activity that paralleled that dealt with a different work zone than is presented today that we all had to deal with as we were warned about the coming winter storm that recently hit. And again, in partnership with District 3 of MnDOT, the Safety Center and the State Driver Ed Association produced an instructional video called An Anatomy of a Winter Storm. MnDOT appears to have updated that, and it looked like it was updated in the late or early, I should say, 2000s. So I come to testify as a long observer of what's been happening. The legislature historically has told driver educators what they needed to include in their curriculum. But on one occasion, only one in the time since 1976 that I've been in the state, did the legislature provide funding to make sure that the programs had contemporary, well-designed curriculum to achieve that which they were mandating to be included in the curriculum. I also remind the committee that the rules currently only allocate 30 hours of instruction for classroom driver education. And I had a colleague once who departed and died in January that would say, John, everyone tells me what to include in my curriculum, but nobody ever tells me what to take out if I'm adding something new. So I do support the bill, but I wanted to bring to this committee's attention a problem that exists relative to the development of contemporary and effective instructional curriculum in the driver education field. Thank you for the opportunity to testify. I'm glad I did not have to drive the hour and 15 minutes one way to do this. This is a benefit of COVID.
Thank you. Any questions for Professor Palmer? All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate the information
Thank
and
you.
perspective. Would anyone else like to testify on Senate File 1903? All right. Committee, any questions of the author or comments? We'll start with Senator Carlson, and then we'll go to Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we have discussed briefly before, one thing that I'm not sure of is how we get something into the manual. Now we have it here in this bill to put it into the manual, and there was some talk about whether we need to fund anything, and usually it does require reprinting. But and I carried that handheld cell phone, the ban of handheld cell phones, for quite a few years, and we didn't need to do any curriculum change, any mandate. Yet it did get in there. Obviously, I've had the 55 Alive classes, and so we spent probably, the last time I took it, we spent probably between 20 minutes and a half an hour in that class on handling cell phones and what the laws are, pros and cons, things like that. But I didn't do anything to put that into the class. And now we're thinking here of some new rules, and I'd like to know, how do we get the curriculum changed so that something like that is in the 55 Alive classes? Because a lot of us are old enough and maybe disconnected enough to not know what's the newest information. And I guess I'm thinking again, the move over law we passed quite some time ago. Those are safeties for the people that work on the highways. But I'm just wondering if we have a feel for that.
Well, we have Director Zhang here. I mean, this bill has three elements, of course. It has driver's education, it has the manual, and then the exam. And then it directs rules, a rules process. So that, by the way, you have to go to state and local. I don't know if you knew that because of the rules that are in the bill. So
That's okay, I know people
sending
there.
you all over hither and yon. I have seen instances where on the agency's own initiative, they've taken up ideas for changes to at least the manual. I'm not sure about driver's education. But I've also seen where, for example, Bike MN, Minnesota Bicycle Coalition brought forward an initiative to do better training on vulnerable road users, non-motorized transportation, and that went through a legislative process where that was directed. So it feels like there's different ways that these ideas get into driver's education, the manual, the exam, et cetera. I don't know if Director Zhang wants to share some insight. We'll invite him forward. Welcome, Director.
Mr. Chair?
Hi.
Senator
One
Carlson.
element of that is the 55 Alive, I believe, is an initiative from insurance companies. I don't know that that really is connected with the driver education manual and that kind of curriculum.
I'm sorry to report that my husband just informed me that we're going to be taking the 55 Alive classes and get 10% off our insurance premium. I was like, oh, I guess we're that age, okay. So is your question specifically to senior driver's education or youth driver's education and the manual and the exam?
Being that, Mr. Chair, being that I represent one part of that, I am thinking of the people that have had driver's education years ago,
right,
and now need an upgrade.
Right,
They need it.
right.
They need.
Okay, that's an
to
excellent
know
question,
what's happening these days.
So, Director Zhang, why don't we hear more generally from you about kind of how topics end up in those three places, driver's education, manual, the exam, both driver's education as we usually think about it, as well as folks who need to be kind of caught up with the changing world, people like us. Director Zhang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Pong Zhang, Director of the Driver and Vehicle Services Division. So in terms of the manual, we track legislation, and where legislation impacts the manual, we make the corresponding updates. Sometimes there's funding associated with that, other times there are not. There's a cost associated to updating the manual, and we have opted to not print the manual as a cost savings effort, and so the costs are on the technology end of updating that and the work of just updating it. As far as driver's education curriculum, the department has a responsibility to certify that curriculum, and it's not quite the same as insurance programs, and I'll cover that in a second as well. But when we verify the driver's ed programs, we ensure that it has all the minimum requirements. We don't have a prescription for anything additional to the minimum. Obviously, if there are items in there that are contrary to our state laws, we will address that as we iterate with those programs. There are close to 500 driver's ed programs in the state, almost 500 driver's ed programs in the state. And so we ensure that their curriculum meets the minimum requirements, and this this bill would increase the minimum requirements, and so that would be something we would look for in future and as an update to curriculums. But as far as items that aren't required that end up in the curriculum, we just ensure that if it's included, that it follows state law. And likewise, insurance programs and other programs, driving programs that are not associated to driver's ed, the department doesn't certify those programs. We're just not involved in that, and so that's something that these companies and industries pick up on their own.
Senator Carlson.
I think, Mr. Chair, I think I understand here that it's picked up by the people that handle the curriculum for those 55 Alive classes, and that would be separate from the people that prepare the driver's manuals. I do have another wonder question too, is that are there, Mr. Chair, is there a distribution of driver's manuals that goes beyond a new driver, where a new driver might be applying for a license and goes through driver's training? Is there some kind of distribution that happens with driver's manuals that is over and above the brand new drivers?
I think they're online. I don't think there's any printed boxes of driver's manuals laying around anymore. Maybe Director Zhang can help us understand that.
That is correct. We keep the most current version of the manual online. There are organizations, and even within our agency, our community affairs division has taken on an effort to print and make those available at different community centers and libraries. That is fairly common to have that available. But the department, DVS, we do not print that manual as a current practice.
Senator Carlson.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. Further questions, Senator Farnsworth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And actually, you might be able to answer the question if you could stay. First, I want to say I can't believe that this isn't. I mean, when I did my driver's training in 1993, I would have sworn that I had this as part of my driver's training. So it kind of shocks me that we don't have this. But my question is more, and I'll use my son as an example. So he just did his driver's training class in September and couldn't take the test to get his permit until last month. And I'm wondering, is there some sort of let's say that this change were to take place in December. So he took the class in September, didn't learn all of this, and then takes the test in February. Is there some sort of a grace period, or would we be maybe sending people that we know took the driver's class, sending them information saying, hey, this was added, so make sure you know it? What's the solution for that?
I don't know it. Ask him.
Phone a friend. Director Zhang.
Mr. Chair and Senator Farnsworth, so as some technical feedback and input that we are preparing to share with you, Senator Johnson Stewart, is the timelines here are a bit of a challenge for us. So the first piece of this timeline is we have to update the test questions, effective of the effective date of this legislation, which doesn't give us time to update the manual. And so we will need to update the manual first before we can update the test, because we build all of our questions off of the manual language, and it's really important that those two align. To the question about curriculum and manual change, that's another piece of this timeline that is tricky for us. This requires us to establish some rules around what needs to be in curriculum, and then those programs need to then update their curriculum. As it stands right now, we would have an updated manual and test questions, and in some subsequent time period when rules are established, and then those programs are able to update, then their curriculum would then correspond. To kind of your first comment, though, I will say that in review of this, we do have questions in our Rolodex of questions, our super secret Rolodex of questions that cover some of this. Maybe not quite as, there's one question that needs to have some adjustment so that it actually would cover the specific questions identified in this bill. And so there are elements of it already included in our test. What this bill does add, though, is it requires that the curriculums include this, and some may already. It would just mean that every curriculum would have to going forward.
Senator Farnsworth. All right. So I will mention that to your point, for technical advice that's needed on this bill. The bill will be going to state and local. It will have to come back here. If I could please request that it not sail on its own to the floor, Senator Johnson Stewart, because there is a fiscal element to it, and we haven't identified the cost, and we probably need to take in some of the technical issues that the agency will advise us on, and so we'll bring it back and probably incorporate it into the finance bill, if that's all right. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Johnson Stewart. I agree with this bill. I think it's something, and I'm surprised it's not already, as Senator Farnsworth said, so it's good to get it in there. One thing, just kind of the comments about, getting it into the curriculum and all those things. Again, we sometimes get frustrated with fiscal notes that come back, and it seems like if they're supportive by the department, the fiscal note comes back reasonable. If they don't like it, they come back, death by fiscal note. So I just hope that we can try and continue to make sure that we're treating each bill fairly, so that we're not trying to do the death by fiscal note. So, and again, I support this. I think it's great. And again, like Senator Farnsworth said, I'm surprised it's not already in there, but it's great to make sure it goes in now. So thank you.
Yeah, I would echo Senator Farnsworth's observation. It feels kind of amazing that this isn't already. But you know what? I have to say, it's been a long time since I took driver's ed. But I don't remember getting specific training on how to think about work zones, how to approach them, how to move through them, et cetera. So I think this is a good step to take. Anything further, members? All right. Final word, Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, committee members. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will consult with the DVS and get some of that scheduling input. I think it's really important. Just as a closing note, I want to say that Ms. Breiduck brought up a lot of good points. I came up here and talked about my perspective as a worker, but really this is an important issue for new drivers. To our credit, when engineers design a roadway, regardless of the speed, they already take into account the expected travel speed. So we don't think about it. We know that we'll always see a stop sign in time. We know that if we go around a curve at a certain speed, we'll be able to navigate it. But what happens in a work zone is the speed is expected to be reduced. So understanding why you can't drive through a work zone at 60 miles an hour, as indicated by, Ms. Breiduck, you're going to have a challenge navigating that, and that's a special case, and it violates drivers' expectations. So I think this is a really important bill, both for those of us that work alongside a road, but also those of us that have new drivers, especially driving through a work zone where the input variables are so much greater. So I'm grateful for all the questions, and I would very much look forward to coming back after state and local government with a little bit of a changed bill.
Great. And so with that, Senator Johnson Stewart moves that Senate File 1903 be recommended to pass and be referred to the Committee on State and Local Government. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Senator Johnson Stewart. So now we'll invite Senator Jasinski to the table to first present Senate File. Well, I'll leave it to Senator Jasinski. Senator Jasinski, do you want to present on Senate File 176 first, or with your partner, Senator Limmer, on 292 and 396?
Actually, since Senator Limmer's here, why don't we go ahead and do that one first? That would make the most sense. So if Senator Limmer can help as well, that would be
members,
cool.
We're going to hear both Senate Files 292 and 396 concurrently. I'll invite Senator Limmer to the table. There he is. All right. Proceed as you will.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to leave it to my elder, Senator Limmer, to start things off.
I seem to not have much time left.
I was teasing him earlier in the hallway about being the senior senator earlier today. Senator Limmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before I begin, I'd like to offer an author's amendment, the A2 amendment, to get it in the form that would
Right.
be best.
Senator Limmer offers the A2 to Senate File 292. Coming around.
Thank you.
All right, so this is, all right, so so this is an author's amendment. Everyone has it, the A2 to Senate File 292. Looks like it just changes some numbers and some dates and things. All right, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries. Senator Limmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the sentiment is universal. We need more troopers to improve public safety. This bill will ensure or help ensure that troopers have the proper resources and funding when doing their non-trunk highway responsibilities. Those responsibilities might be in assisting local law enforcement, dealing with riots, other things that are a non-trunk highway responsibility. As you may have discussed before, some consider the role of troopers as a leakage of trunk highway funds. Additionally, troopers often do many things, as I mentioned, that are explicitly not considered a highway purpose. Occasionally, they come back and ask for general funds in the following year, do an unconstitutional appropriation. But often it's kind of a blur in the use of trunk highway funds. And this particular bill would recognize through general fund sources that they could handle these other responsibilities not related to trunk highway funds. If you looked at the dollar amount, this would be able to hire 21 additional troopers, which would cost the dollar amount that you see in the A2 amendment. It's a pretty straightforward bill, Mr. Chair, and I could stand for questions. I think in this group discussion, we also have the colonel here to give comment as well, but it's up to you when you want her to give that advice to the committee.
Great, thanks. Why don't we first see if we'll pause here and see if there are any questions on the bill as presented by Senator Limmer. I will have a question, but I'll wait. I'll hold on that. Senator Jasinski, would you like to present your variation on this theme?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. And as well, I also have an A2 amendment, which updates some numbers. So with that, I'd offer the A2.
So Senator Jasinski offers the A2 to Senate File number 396. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, this is almost identical to Senator Limmer's bill as far as we know that we need the need for new troopers. My concern was looking at the forecast that we're going to see tomorrow, whether we get a target for that or not is my concern. Again, so I think trunk highway funds for troopers may be considered leakage. I think it's essential service to be patrolling our highways. So I think it's one of those things that we should use for that. Again, I've made comments on buildings, things like that I don't agree with, but this is one that I do agree with. So what this would do is use trunk highway funds for the same purpose that Senator Limmer explained. We need to increase the number of troopers to help patrol our highways across the state. So I think it's fairly straightforward. Again, this would just basically come from trunk highway funds versus general funds. So with that, I'd open myself up for any questions, or we can go to our testifier.
Great. Any questions at this point, members, for Senator Jasinski? Okay, thank you. Colonel Bogoyevich.
Good afternoon, Chair Dibble, members of the committee. My name is Christina Bogoyevich, and I have the honor of serving as the Colonel of the Minnesota State Patrol. First, I want to thank Senator Jasinski, Chair Dibble, and this committee for your support and investments in the Minnesota State Patrol over the years. The funding for additional troopers that this bill would provide is appreciated and could help the State Patrol further its mission to improve traffic safety through education, assistance, and enforcement. As I testified in front of this committee earlier this session, the State Patrol has current vacancies and upcoming retirements. In order to ensure that we can fill these known vacancies, I believe the additional funding for recruitment is the Patrol's most critical need. The patrol currently has approximately 90 open positions out of 710 troopers. We have a very strong class of 42 cadets at Camp Ripley, which means that we will still have around 50 open positions. These positions, especially on days like today, are critical. We've had 6 troopers hit just today while out working on Minnesota highways. We also know that in the next 4 years, we'll have 100 troopers that will be able to retire. I believe that recruitment and hiring initiatives included in the governor's budget and this funding bill shows a strong bipartisan support for the Minnesota State Patrol and can work well together. I'm committed to working with Senator Jasinski and Senator Limmer and this committee to ensure the patrol can continue to recruit, train, hire, and retain the best possible candidates to grow the Minnesota State Patrol. Thank you. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Colonel Bogoyevich. Questions, members? Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When you said 42 in the class, is that an average class size? Or is the recruitment going well? I know that we've talked about this in the past, but it's been a long time since I've been updated, and I'm just curious if you're able to recruit like you would like to be able to.
Colonel.
Mr. Chair, Senator, thank you for the question. We have seen a rise in some recruitment. It's not where it was in 2017 or 18, but it's getting better. And so we are hopeful that we will be able to fill 1 and possibly hold 2 academies in the future.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What is your optimum class size? Is it 50, give or take? And as far as recruitment, how many troopers would you like to be training on an annual basis to meet your retirement goals?
Colonel.
Mr. Chair, Senator, a typical class we consider between 35 and 45. And so our goal would be to hold 2 classes or 2 academies per year for the next several years to be able to stay ahead of those retirements.
All right, thank you. Senator Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colonel, thank you for being here, and I highly support our State Patrol and the request before us. I just have a couple questions. I don't know if you can maybe shed some light on that. I was just wondering, so recruitment is a huge issue, and how could these funds be helpful in recruitment? Is it salary, retirement, equipment, more classes, all of the above? Probably some things I haven't thought of, but how could these funds help with more recruitment?
Colonel.
Mr. Chair, Senator, some of these funds, as we work through this bill, we would like to put towards some marketing and advertisement, and I know we talked about that when I was here prior, to ensure that we are getting the largest pool we can to recruit from, I should say largest qualified pool to recruit from. And so putting or dedicating some funds towards that, and then like you said, bipartisan support for salary and as we go through contracts and things like that, and then the ability to hold 2 academies a year.
Thank you.
Senator Nelson.
Thank you. One more question. Then, so to hold, how much does it cost to hold an academy?
Colonel Bogoyevich.
Mr. Chair, Senator, it's approximately $230,000 per body in the academy, and that is to train and to outfit them to get them onto the road.
Thank
Senator
you.
Nelson.
Thank you very much.
And members, I've gone up and visited the training classes in the past. I'm sure Colonel Bogoyevich would extend the invitation up to Fort Ripley. If you're interested, it's very informative and very interesting and very encouraging as well. If there's an opportunity, I would encourage any member of this committee to make the trek up and meet the recruits and see the class and how it's conducted, and you'll learn a lot. All right. Further questions, members? All right. Thank you very much, Senators Limmer and Jasinski. We will lay Senate Files 292 and 396 on the table for consideration in our finance bill. Appreciate your being with us. You're welcome back anytime, Senator Limmer.
I can hardly wait.
Yeah, we're sending a few bills your way to Judiciary, so it's
Thank
like an
you, Mr. Chair.
exchange. It's like an exchange program here. All right, Senator Jasinski, why don't we go to Senate File 176?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to present Senate File number 176. I want to thank my co-authors, Senator Howe and Senator Lang. We've been working on this for a few years together. I would also have some updated numbers, so I'd like to offer the A4 amendment to get the bill in the current shape I need it.
Senator Jasinski offers the A4 amendment. Is that at our places? Everyone have that? Yes, okay, thank you. All right, so to the A4 with some updated numbers. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I've been involved with this for about 9 years now. Senator Lang and myself came back in 2017. Him being a helicopter pilot, me being a previous air controller, had some interest in this issue. I think both of us, I don't think Senator Lang's been up as well, but have been able to go up in Trooper, I think it was Trooper 8 at the time, to see how this tool is used and how it can be so effective in Minnesota. There's so many things done. It's safe. We're doing pursuit mitigation, so you're not seeing high-speed chases. The helicopter, the aircraft up there can do so many things from the air. So what we're doing with this bill is adding 2 new aircraft, one helicopter and one fixed-wing airplane. Again, right now we have just approved, 2 years ago we got a Bell 429 approved. That'll be coming online in, I believe, April due to a couple equipment delays, but that'll be coming online. And that's a twin engine, so that much safer, much more efficient. I'll let Senator Lang go into some of those details. He's probably the expert on that. But it also, a twin engine is much safer in case one engine goes out, and also adds the capability of having a rescue hook, so it can be used for more rescue operations. So just really updating our equipment to make sure that the troopers have the equipment they can do to be very effective in Minnesota. The other one is a fixed-wing airplane that also updates an older version. We've done that again last year. We had one, and we updated a very, very old couple aircraft, or a single aircraft. What this would do would also update to the new technology for the newer aircraft. So with that, I think that explains what I need to do, and then I'll turn it over to Senator Bogoyevich if she wants to go into any details. And then I think Senator Lang is well aware of and can ask some good questions and give some more insight to this, how important this is.
All right, thank you. Any questions at this point to the bill as presented? All right, Colonel Bogoyevich.
Good afternoon, Chair Dibble, members of the committee. I'm Christina Bogoyevich. I serve as the Colonel of the State Patrol. Again, I'd like to thank Senator Jasinski, Senator Dibble, and this committee for your support over the years. 2 years ago, the State Patrol received funding for a new helicopter and airplane because of the support of this committee and the governor. Senate File 176 appears to build on this work. The air fleet in the Minnesota State Patrol supports public safety in Minnesota by mitigating risk during pursuits, creating a safer environment for law enforcement and the public. They provide resources to combat the nationwide street racing issues that we have seen in Minnesota. They're used in collaboration with troopers on the highways for speed enforcement, and they perform critical rescue missions across the state. Our flight hours have increased 78% over the past 6 years. The funding provided in this bill would allow the patrol to further modernize our fleet and better serve all Minnesotans. I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you, Colonel. Questions, members? Senator Lang.
Well, I don't really have any questions, but this is something that I've been working both with the State Patrol Aviation House as well as the DNR fleet. The DNR fleet's in actually probably worse shape than the State Patrol's is as far as age of aircraft and really the condition of aircraft. So that's going to be coming down the line as well. So the 429, this is something that historically the State Patrol has had single-engine 206 Bell helicopters, which not only are almost to the point of being outdated, but finding parts, finding the maintenance capability. I mean, they had one that they kept on the ramp down there for parts that was, we'll call it a hard landing. That's what it was. It was a hard landing. But they kept it for parts just so they could keep the other aircraft flying. They also have flown 407s over the years. The 407 is a newer version of a 206. It's a little bigger, a little more capable. However, those aircraft are also getting to the point where they are capable of certain things. However, they are not capable of rescue operations, in my viewpoint. You guys do it. You guys, and they have what, I don't even know, it's a big, long line that they'll rescue people with, but they don't pull them into the aircraft. They just let them hang below. And they'll fly them to safety, but not exactly in my viewpoint, the very way that you want to be rescued is get strapped to a 100-foot long line and drug out of a field someplace. So the 429, like Senator Jasinski was just saying, is coming online. That is the platform that I would definitely push for as far as not only being perfectly capable of doing everything the State Patrol needs to do right now, but it opens up a whole new area of rescue and search and rescue operations. So it for sure is a good aircraft. So the Cirrus, that is the industry standard. It kind of is. It's made in Minnesota, which is awesome. And it is kind of the industry standard as far as fixed wing aircraft. It's probably one of the more efficient aircrafts right now as well. So nothing cheap about anything in the aviation world, but we got to do it. So with that, I don't really have any questions, I don't think. So
either a question to you, Senator Lang, or to Colonel Bogoyevich. So with the new helicopter, they can get the person up into the aircraft? Colonel. Colonel Bogoyevich.
Chair Dibble, I'd actually ask for Lieutenant Benz to come up and talk about the operations of the helicopter.
Great idea.
Welcome. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Lieutenant Craig Benz. I'm the Lieutenant and Chief Pilot of the Minnesota State Patrol Flight Section Air Wing.
So did you get the question? So Senator Lang said with one of the current helicopters, a rescued person has kind of dragged along at the end of a string.
Mr. Chair, I'm telling you, every time they do this all at AHATS, the Army, or Arden Hills Army Aviation Training Site. And every time I see these guys, I'm telling you, I'm like, what? Why?
Can we get the subject of the rescue up into the helicopter with a new helicopter?
Thank you, Chair and Senator and members. Yes, with the 429, it does have a hoist capable, which was part of that purpose for choosing that aircraft. We can bring the rescuer and the individual who's being rescued up into the aircraft.
Is it true that we don't have the capability, at least with one of our helicopters, of doing that today? Or we're dragging people across the hither and yon at the end of a string?
Thank you, Chair. Yes. Right now, we do what's called long line or short haul method, and that is where the pilot, who is up in the aircraft alone, basically looks out and flies the rescuer to the subject who needs rescuing. It's called vertical reference on behalf of the pilot, and they're flying the aircraft again, looking down at the bottom of the rope, getting the rescuer to where they need to be. The rescuer would then disconnect and package up the patient or put them in an apparatus, and then we would connect them, or they would connect themselves to the bottom of the line, at which point we then pick up and, again, watching to make sure that we are not dragging them or striking any obstacles. We fly them to a waiting ground ambulance or whatnot. All the time, they are remaining 100 feet below the aircraft. Yes.
So Mr. Chair, I would also say that if you drag one medic through the trees one time, you will never hear the end of it.
Well, even if you're not being dragged through trees, being at the end of a line, it just sounds like a very, very unpleasant experience. Senator, so go Senator Nelson, then Senator Johnson.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to just play this new card again. I have a couple questions that might be things you already know, but I think they're important. There could be other folks who don't know this too. So again, I'm highly supportive of our troopers and whatever equipment and planes are needed. My question, though, is it seems unusual that the legislature is designating a particular, in this case, plane or particular planes. And I also am wondering, is it typical that it comes out of the trunk highway fund? Like, I'm thinking, does the State Patrol have a budget for getting the planes that are needed or whatever is needed? And where is that budget? Where is it if it's not in the trunk highway fund? So that might not even be for the testifiers. That might be for our fiscal analysts here, just to kind of describe a little bit. Does the legislature usually determine particular purchases for, in this case, the State Patrol for planes? And does it usually come out of the trunk highway fund? Or where are planes financed? Out of what part of our state budget?
So, yeah, I'm curious about the first part of the question, and we'll have fiscal staff help answer the second part of the question, and/or our chief author, who loves to talk about general versus trunk highway funds. So, yeah, so the question, whomever feels qualified or ready to respond to some of the specifics, we have as a replacement for the current Cessna 182, and specifying exactly what we're buying. If we could share a little bit about why we've crafted the bill in that manner, and then we'll talk about the finance piece. Senator Jasinski, however you want to handle it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to my understanding, and fiscal staff can correct me, but these have been funded out of trunk highway funds from the beginning with the staffing, the patrol, the trooper cars, the aircraft are all funded through the trunk highway funds. Again, I've earlier this session had a concern over the new state patrol headquarters, because I think that's above and beyond what we should be using out of trunk highway funds. But to my understanding, everything that is done out of the trooper budget to maintain our highways, to make sure they're policed, is all coming out of trunk highway funds. But Mr. Greenfield may be able to correct me on that. Or, I'm sorry, Ms. Boyd should be doing that. Sorry.
Ms. Boyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Senator Jasinski and Senator Nelson. I actually don't have a correction. I believe, in general, I believe there might have been one instance several years ago where we split between general fund and trunk highway the cost of an aircraft for the state patrol, but in general, these come out of the trunk highway fund, as do all other costs for the state patrol, ongoing operations. And in terms of, I believe one of your other questions was about.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Senator Nelson.
Well, thank you for, first of all, telling me all state patrol funds come out of trunk highway funds. That's good to know. But so my question is, it just seems rather unusual for the legislature to say this is the equipment that you need, and this is the equipment that we are going to fund in this particular way. So you've kind of answered the funding question, but is it, I mean, the only time I can remember in my 20 years is that Governor Pawlenty at one time said, we're getting, I think, 2 new helicopters. But do all the planes come from the legislature saying it's time to buy a plane and this is the plane to buy?
I can take a stab at it, Mr. Chair.
Well, sure. Ms. Boyd.
Just briefly, and the State Patrol may have a different answer, but generally because it's outside the scope of the appropriations we make, and it's such a large purchase, that these are usually come as requests, either in the governor's budget or otherwise in bills that are then funded by the legislature or not. And the particular naming in this case, I believe, was because it was designated as a replacement, and that information was available from the State Patrol, what aircraft would be replaced with a specific other aircraft. Whether this ends up in the final bill or not, or there's other recommendations from the department, will be, up to them. So.
There's also the happy coincidence that Cirrus is manufactured in Minnesota.
We like that.
Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and you just hit my point. So again, we didn't designate the helicopter because we don't have a manufacturer in the state, but because when we drafted the bill, me and my researcher decided we wanted it in Minnesota company, so we did actually specifically put in Cirrus, which also is probably the best aircraft that I've seen. I've toured different airplanes, and I think this is also recommended by State Patrol. You can correct me if I'm not, but I think just this aircraft and how safe it is and the platform is really becoming an industry standard, but I'd turn it over to the Lieutenant if he wants to comment on that.
Lieutenant Benz.
Chair, yes, Senator, it is the standard. It's a great working aircraft for us. We've had good success with it. It's been a known platform for us, and so we would remain with the Cirrus.
Senator Nelson.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think my questions have been answered. It's just, so when it comes to new planes, kind of like buildings that state agencies need, the legislature takes specific action for a specific plane, for example, or building. So, no, I just appreciate this discussion. It just seemed like we were kind of micromanaging, but it sounds like that is not the case. So, thank you.
Well, it kind of is, but it's for a reason. Senator Jasinski.
And Mr. Chair, just one more thing again. I think having something standard, so having 2 429s versus 1 429, 1 407, I think it helps the pilots to have a same platform so they're familiar with the same, so they can interchange between aircraft. And again, same thing with the Cirrus. A Cirrus is different than a Cessna, things like that. So having the repetitiveness, it makes it easier for the pilots to have that understanding of the platform. Again, I'd turn it over to the Lieutenant if he wants to comment on that.
Lieutenant.
Thank you, Chair. Senator, you're spot on with that.
And I'll just note for the record that Senator Nelson, I would be more comfortable if there was a mix between Trunk Highway Fund and General Fund. In the perfect world, we would do that. We're not in the perfect world right now, but the fact of the matter is search and rescue is not a highway purpose. It comprises, I've had this conversation with Colonel Bogoyevich, the activities of the State Patrol, and of course I'm not talking at all about the state capital function that's funded and considered completely separately, comes to about 5% total of what the State Patrol, and we've had that conversation actually in the context of the HQ, if we could maybe pay for the HQ with some general fund and not completely out of the Trunk Highway Fund because of, the fact that they do local law enforcement support, they do search and rescue and those sorts of things that don't relate back to their state trunk highway and traffic mission. So we'll see if we can get there in the general fund or not, but for the most part, the freight usually is carried by the Trunk Highway Fund for State Patrol. Equipment, personnel, and services.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate the history. And I would just say my questions might have seemed rather odd. It was like, I just never remember us determining equipment for any agency, whether it be MnDOT or anything else. So I appreciate taking the time for the good discussion here. Thank you.
Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have ridden on the state plains many times, and I just have a general question about the State Patrol's planes. Are they kept separate, or are they considered part of the overall state fleet? Mr. Chair.
Bogoyevich, so we have the kind of the state fleets, but then we also have the State Patrol fleet of aircraft. They're separate fleets, or are they all considered one big fleet?
Mr. Chair, Senator, I believe we have our separate fleet, but I will need to double check that.
Thank you. Senator Johnson Stewart.
So a second thing, you may not be able to answer this then. So I'm just curious, because I just remember when I needed to fly somewhere on state business, we would go out of Signature, we might get the King Air, or I can't remember what they were now. I'm just curious if the State Patrol aircraft is available to other people, or if you ever let anybody outside the State Patrol use the State Patrol aircrafts.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Jasinski.
I think I know the answer because MnDOT has their fleet, and again, the King Air was a MnDOT airplane. This is State Patrol are separate, and I think they're only used for State Patrol. I don't think they can be loaned out to a different department to be used for something else. But again, I'll turn over to Lieutenant on that. I believe it's just for the State Patrol operations.
Lieutenant Mitz.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, Senator, you're correct. They're separate fleets, separate aircraft. We operate ours, DOT operates theirs, and we use ours for public safety and for our State Patrol needs.
What about outside of state government? No other law enforcement jurisdictions make use of our aircraft? Okay, thank you. Senator Nelson.
That brings up just one more question, just to close the loop on this. So will we be getting requests about MnDOT fleet airplanes that are needed, or others? Is it a similar process?
Now, if you can believe it, I'm forgetting. I think we did just replace the state airplane or airplanes. Ms. Boyd, remind me, what have we done? I think we had other airplanes that were ready to fall out of the sky, and I think we replaced those.
Mr. Chair and Senator Nelson, yes, we do. The committee does entertain requests similar to this and have funded them in the past. My memory is going, but I believe 2 years ago we did fund replacement utility airplanes for MnDOT, and prior to that, other airplanes in the past several years. So I don't have specifics for you.
Yeah, so we have the airplane that kind of ferries state personnel around to meetings and activities and duties and responsibilities around the state. But then we also have an airplane that's used to fly around to all the airports around the state, specifically for MnDOT purposes and tending to airport needs. That's probably the airplane that Senator Johnson Stewart has flown on because her company did a lot of the inspections work on state airports around the state. And we replace it, not with Trunk Highway Fund, though, because that's not a Trunk Highway Fund duty. Senator Johnson Stewart.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to, I was here 4 and 3 years ago, and I remember we did fund a MnDOT plane. Just out of curiosity, is the State Patrol, oh, I already know that answer. It's down at Holman Field, right? My question actually related to DNR, sorry. DNR, who owns the planes that are used in firefighting? Are those owned by DNR? Does anybody know?
Senator Lang.
So it depends on what you're talking about.
Well, I'm talking about like those big water ones that they fly out of Ely Airport when there's a forest fire.
Those are, Mr. Chair and Senator, those are usually contracted. So they're mostly privately owned. The Minnesota, also the National Guard does do firefighting only when the private companies either are incapable of putting the fire out. We're the second call. So the National Guard has what we call Bambi buckets, and we dip out of lakes and put fires out, which is we contract with privately owned helicopters, and the DNR does run the ground portion of that. It's called Helitac. They do all the radio operation, and they have oversight above the fire as well. So it all it's a really complicated thing on paper, but when it actually comes into happening, it works pretty well. So.
Thank you. All right. Anything further, members? All right. Did anyone else want to testify on Senate File 176? We already asked. All right. So, Senator Jasinski, final word.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members, for listening. So a couple years, I got an opportunity to go up in Trooper 8, I believe, with Trooper 7 or Trooper 8, I believe Trooper 8. And I spent about 6 hours, went up for 3, and then or 2, and came down for an hour, went back up. And what they can do up there with that piece of equipment is truly amazing. They have daytime cameras, they have infrared cameras, they have night vision goggles, they have a spotlight. We actually, the night we were out, caught a driver doing 131 miles an hour down our Interstate 94 on a motorcycle, just out free riding and doing that. We also were dispatched to an armed robbery in process, and with all these tools with infrared and all these things, and a lot of the cost goes actually into the equipment, not just the helicopter, but it's just an amazing tool. Again, it takes the high speeds of a chase off the roads to do that, and using this piece of equipment is just much safer for our state, and I think it's a great investment in our state patrol to help them do what they need to do. So thank you again for hearing the bill. Again, thank you to my co-authors, Senator Lang and Senator Howe, and you have a pilot and a former air traffic controller supporting this bill, and I think it's something that we could definitely use. So thank you.
Thank you. Sorry to step on your last word. I did want to mention that we do have a letter from Metro Cities in our packet expressing support for Senate File 176. So if you could draw your attention to that. And with that, 1 second. So we did lay Senate Files 292 and 396 as amended on the table. Make sure that we get that into the minutes, if I didn't say those magic words. And we will now lay Senate File 176 as amended on the table for possible inclusion in a future finance bill. All right, with that, we are concluded with our agenda, 15 minutes early, and we'll see everyone here on Monday. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
We are adjourned.